Chapter 4 urges change in the traditional roles of schools in educating black children. Specifically, this chapter advises black Americans to take control of the governance of their neighborhood schools and redesign them around the needs, interests, and goals of black America. The premise of this chapter is is that schools are producing exactly what they were designed to produce: a black laborer marginally trained black laborer capable of taking orders and using his or her physical strength to enrich, protect, and comfort the majority white society. Since schools were never intended to educate black children to be self sufficient, independent, and competitive, this chapter argues that they must begin to receive an education that is reality based and teaches them to live, work, and compete in a pluralistic society. Implementation of the Powernomics National Plan requires that black Americans educate their youth to use their intellectual resources to help the group. To accomplish this end, schools in black communities must close down, like an automobile assembly factory getting ready to produce new models, retool, and reopen only after they are ready to accept a new role in which educational goals, curricula, teaching methods, governance, and funding have been crafted in alignment with the National Empowerment Plan for Black America. Black communities must also inspire and demand political changes on a local level regarding the methods of school governance and funding. Thus, this chapter discusses the role that education should play to free new generations of black minds from the old social conditioning so that black children can gain the skills, social unity, and human resources to compete with children from all other groups. Chapter 5 offers a new economic model to convert black neighborhoods into core economic engines for building wealth and practicing group economics. It highlights how blacks have remained outside of this nation's economic booms and prosperity for centuries. An endless influx of European ethnic immigrants have entered this nation as first class citizens and joined the majority white society in the economic suppression and exploitation of black Americans. This chapter points out how black Americans are violating every known principle of group economics. The growing wealth and income inequalities between blacks and whites, how ethnic groups build niche businesses, how whites and ethnic groups boycott black businesses, the capital and brain drain from black communities, racism in our immigration policies, and the self-inflicted damage of non-economic integration and civil rights. In non-economic integration and civil rights. Chapter 6 is a how-to chapter. It serves as a user's guide to empower black communities by industrializing them. With America downsizing its industrial capacity, this chapter stresses the importance of black America building and operating its own industries to capture and control technology rather than continuing to be its primary victim. Through black though black people are the only population group denied the cultural, economic, and technological benefits of participating in any of the world's industrial revolutions, it is still not too late for us to build our own. Based upon our consumer spending patterns, cultural assets, and market advantages, we can create vertical industries within our own business communities. This chapter identifies some of the industries that blacks should pursue. Moreover, it suggests ways in which blacks can amass capital and control consumer markets. Using the basic powernomics empowerment tools of the ethno aggregation and vertical integration, this chapter describes how to construct industries by vertically linking every process from supplying raw materials at the bottom of the chain to selling the product to the retail consumer markets at the top. Okay. Chapter 7. Chapter 7 looks at politics through the framework of the Powernomics vision and offers 12 principles blacks can use to win group-based political benefits. It questions the historical practice of black Americans ritualistically electing political candidates to public office without receiving reciprocal benefits, voting simply to exercise the right, and failing to hold those they elect accountable for delivering benefits to black communities. The political principles presented in this chapter show black Americans how to play and win as a group in competitive politics. Chapter 8 proposes a theology or a theolo- ooh. Chapter 8 proposes a theology of economics. It issues a call for black religious organizations to use their vast resources to enhance the earthly quality of life for black people, just as churches do for every other ethnic or racial population. Nearly every known organized religion has developed a theological doctrine to morally justify and in some cases, even to support exploitation of black people. To counter the effects of centuries of spiritual and economic abuse, this chapter recommends expanding the traditional role of black churches to encompass specific economic and political activities that are needed to improve the immediate quality of life for black people. In these 8 chapters and the appendices, Powernomics presents a national plan that analyzes the racial dynamics within our society and prescribes new political, education, and economic and social remedies designed to bring about the true equality between the races. The analysis and recommendations within this book are designed to stimulate soul-searching discussions among all segments of our society, particularly within the black community. Since black America stands to benefit or lose the most, black Americans must lead the way. On an editorial note, the black community in the United States is divided over whether to identify its members as black or African American. In this book, the two terms are used interchangeably. Similarly, there is debate regarding whether the terms white and black should be capitalized. It is illogical to capitalize American Indian. It is illogical to capitalize American Indian, Hispanic, Arab, or Asian, yet not capitalized the terms used to describe the two largest racial populations in the United States. Accordingly, I have chosen to capitalize both white and black. In addition, as a writer who is black, my perspective shifts between the first and third person when writing about black people. Finally, a major premise of this text is that black people lack communities, and yet to build communities, but I frequently use the term black community to refer to black people simply as a population. Now, for those readers who are ready to shift into a reality mode and begin a road to black prosperity and true equality, let us begin our journey. Part 1: How Winners and Losers Are Predetermined. Chapter 1: Racism, Monopolies, and Inappropriate Behavior. Alice, which road do I take? Uh, Cheshire, Cheshire Cat. Where do you want to go? Alice, I don't know. Cheshire Cat. Then it doesn't matter which road you take. Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland. The challenges we face. As the Cheshire Cat said to Alice, who was lost in Wonderland in a Wonderland fantasy, it doesn't matter which road, it doesn't matter much which road you take if you don't know where you're going. It is time for black Americans to take a good hard look at where they have come from and where they are going. Are they moving toward or standing still? Are they moving forward or standing still? After centuries of participating in protest marches, race riots, and demonstrations, and pushing for integration and passage of an endless number of civil rights laws, black Americans are increasingly sensing that something is wrong. They question whether or not they are on the right road. A comparative analysis of our socioeconomic conditions shows that black Americans have entered the new millennium much the same way they have entered the previous 4 centuries, as an impoverished, powerless, and neglected people. Since there have yet to be any programs and public policies specifically offered to eliminate the plight of the black masses, their future, like their past, looks bleak. Amidst a rising tide of white conservatism, the wealth and income gaps between majority white society and blacks are widening. Nearly a half a century after the Supreme Court ordered racial desegregation, black Americans still bear 6 to 8 times their proportional share of poverty, broken homes, homelessness, criminal incarceration, unemployment, and other social pathologies. Desegregation should have been about redistribution, wealth, power, and resources, not social integration. Social integration has only addressed the symptoms of our dilemma, rather than the causes. As indicated in Figure 1, it is extremely difficult for black people to progress when the same hands that held the whip still hold still hold almost all of the wealth and power. White House, Lincoln, slave owner. White House, now distributed wealth. New York Daily News, 1937. Artists unknown, reprinted with permission. Same overclass, same underclass. During centuries of black enslavement and Jim Crow semi slavery, the majority of society secured and retained its inherited advantages, while a black minority inherited a legacy of disadvantage in the race based society. Whites acquired ownership and control over nearly everything of value, as well as a system for keeping blacks non competitive and powerless. The sheer existence and size of a growing black underclass is prima facie evidence of institutionalized racism that manipulates symbols, resources, and power to advantage whites over blacks. The reality of black America's dilemma is that they are predestined to become a permanent underclass if they do not break free of the numerous disadvantages they have inherited. Blacks should get off of the social road to nowhere. There are no yellow brick roads to the future, nor will blacks simply stumble into wealth and power in a competitive society. There are no yellow brick roads to the future, nor will blacks simply stumble into wealth and power in a stumble into wealth and power in a competitive society. To find a better road requires blacks to unlearn old behavior models, strategies, and unlearned helplessness and learned helplessness in race matters. Blacks must understand the nature of the competitive race and make a radical metamorphosis. They must decide where they want to go, get out front of their competitors, and work hard to get there first. If blacks compete, they can expect to succeed and survive in the race for wealth and power. Race, racism, and wealth. Although slavery and Jim Crow's semi slavery ended generations ago, their legacies live on in various forms of structural racism. Contrary to popular notions about the concept of race, it is more than a biological grouping. Race is about financial, political, and social currencies. It is a form of stored wealth and power. Whiteness has monetary value. Knowing the origin and value, knowing the origin and nature of the value of race is essential to any analysis of Black America's dilemma. It is important that blacks know why the race problem refuses to die and how it is used to keep them a non competitive and powerless group. The word race first appeared with the emergence of the slave practice in the 16th century. Records indicate the word race was selected because the various European slave trading nations were in a contest competing to profit from the mineral and human wealth of Africa. The prize for winning the race was the power to develop Western civilization using the wealth extracted out of Africa. People, black people, were non competitors in the race. They were the prizes. They were the prizes. So they could neither play nor win. After the competing slave trading nations, religions, and ethnic groups benefited, all the competing all the competing slave trading nations, religions, and ethnic groups benefited and were advantaged by black slavery. Slavery is most often approached in social and moral terms. It is seldom discussed in terms of the primary incentive that undergirded the slave trade, wealth building. Slavery must always be explained in monetary terms. Throughout the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, organized religion used doctrines to justify slave trading. During this same period, botanists and others in the biological sciences were studying and attempting to stratify plants and animals based upon their biological similarities and differences. They ordered plants and animals by species. Though it took nearly 300 years, the concept of race eventually emerged with the concept of biological species. By that time, white Europeans had secured nearly total control of the world's wealth and resource powers. Their new concept of race established superiority on the basis of who controlled the wealth, power, and resources at that particular time in history. Wealth, power, and privileges became the prerogatives of non blacks. Through intellectual sleight of hand, race became synonymous with the term species in the mid 1800s. At that time, Charles Darwin developed the concept of biological race in his Origin of the Species, and it quickly became popular. Often called the survival of the fittest, Darwin's theories, as well as a number of other quasi scientific concepts, were used by educators, politicians, and religious leaders to justify black slavery and establish a qualitative ranking of inherited genes and human fitness. Naturally, those controlling the wealth and power put their cultural values and biological characteristics at the top of the racial order, and blacks at the bottom, beneath Caucasians and Mongols, Asians. All the major European religious dominations at the time used the Bible to teach racial ranking with implicit black inferiority. During the black civil rights movements of the 1950s and 60s, the concept of biological races was intentionally expanded to include cultural, religious, ethnic, and all Spanish speaking language groups, which were competing with black people for rights, space, and privileges. The concept of race was then diluted to an attitudinal level, and the term racism was used interchangeably with such terms as bias, prejudice, bigotry, and discrimination. Now, the term racism has become so amorphous that it has little meaning and is applied to all so called minorities. If black Americans are to resolve and reverse the legacies of slavery, they must view and treat racism based upon its original meaning and intent. Racism, a race without a finish line. Racism is a wealth and power based competitive relationship between blacks and non blacks. The sole purpose of racism is to support and ensure that the white majority and its ethno subgroups continue to dominate and use blacks as a means to produce wealth and power. Centuries of black enslavement and Jim Crow semi slavery resulted in the majority society becoming 99-foot giants and blacks 1 foot midgets. This massive inequality in wealth and resources made blacks non competitive and totally dependent upon whites for the necessities of life. The true racism exists only when one group holds a disproportionate share of wealth and power over another group, then uses those resources to marginalize, exploit, exclude, and subordinate the weaker group. In America, it is whites who use wealth and power to marginalize, exploit, and subordinate blacks. Whites can deny blacks employment, educational opportunities, business resources, a place to live, or the right to vote. Therefore, according to this definition, black people cannot be racist. No group of blacks has the power or exclusive control. No group of blacks, no group of blacks has the power or exclusive control of resources to the degree that they can educationally, politically, economically, and socially exploit and marginalize the white race. Blacks can only react to racism. Blacks can only react to racism and try to alter the conditions that racism creates. Despite the realities, there are numerous conservative blacks who act as apologists for white racism and confuse the issue. A conservative black a conservative black radio talk show host in Los Angeles, for example, charges that blacks are as racist as whites. His desire for white approval, as well as his ignorance of history, impedes him from understanding that white racism and black prejudice are not the same thing. Blacks have a reason for their feelings about whites based on how they have been treated by whites. The white race, on the other hand, has never been marginalized by the black race. Racism reinforces the legacies of slavery and Jim Crow semi slavery. Blacks have been unable to escape from those legacies because the majority of society acknowledges the operation of racism in the distant past, but minimizes its present significance. Yeah. Okay, good. We're good. We're good.